Hello, everyone. Today, I am joined by Eliron Eikstein, the CEO and co-founder at Ravin AI, a company tackling a very old problem with a very new approach, assessing vehicle damage with AI instead of slow, human-heavy workflows. So what stood out in our first conversation wasn't the technical sophistication of what Ravin built, but something more human, the challenge of getting a deeply traditional industry to actually trust AI. So today we will talk about skepticism, adoption accuracy, fraud, and the quiet operational constraints that shape both customer experience and profitability. And we will explore what it means to introduce genuinely new capabilities into a system built to resist change, right? It's a traditional story. So um, Anyone, we'll start with your background and the industry trends that you're seeing, and then we can discuss your current challenges and where you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months. So here is the floor to you.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm very excited to be here. And
Of
I
course.
will just start with my own background, the unlikely background of a founder. I was actually part of a very large corporation in Royal Dutch Shell back in 2016 or 17, where I was heading up new business development for new energies. And new energies was had a broad mandate from the group to explore new business models around um, sustainable energies, such as electric vehicle charging, solar, wind, but also the non-energy sectors in mobility. And that also was pretty broad. But the whole concept was, what could we take from the Shell group of companies? What assets do we have to generate new business revenues and new business opportunities? And so I started looking specifically at the petrol stations that we had around the world and said, well, we have millions of cars driving in and out every single day. What else can we be selling to those drivers and to those fleets? And very quickly came across the concept of vehicle inspections.
Mm,
So with that, we actually started exploring it and looked at the idea of taking photos of vehicles after accidents and rolled very quickly into this new venture called Ravin AI, which we spun out of Shell. And I actually kind of spun out with the business and left Shell to start a completely new adventure with just a small group of people and some funding. So we raised our first seed round back in 2019
mm,
um, and raised since then just under $40 million in venture money and really developed this platform into what it is today, which is a holistic vehicle inspection platform based on mobile phones and very robust in the sense of capturing the correct images and guiding non-professional users to create their own vehicle assessments.
mm. So that's a fascinating story, right? Congratulations on this. And what kind of industry trends you're seeing today?
Well, certainly, if we look at not only the insurance industry, but as a whole, AI is here to stay. And it seems like every other week you're learning about a new use case for artificial intelligence, which in itself is a very broad space with lots of use cases and technologies. I think the insurance space definitely has seen much more automation in the underwriting side of things and sales.
Mhm,
But we're also now starting to see a more nuanced and more difficult space of claims and claim automation. And
mm,
I think the tension that we're seeing, especially in the claim space and in auto claims, is the tension between automation, which equals savings and in general better customer experience, but also fairness. How do I know as an insurance company that I'm paying up the right amount
mm,
and I'm being fair to my customers, I'm being transparent? And I think this we're in the midst of that boiling point where insurance companies have always tried to automate and try to push out payments quickly and try to do straight through processing. But they've always been hit by those cases where people said, hey, you're underpaying, or you haven't done properly your due diligence, or you're even you're breaching some rules here. And we've just seen last month, two class actions. One of them against State Farm, and the other one I think was Geico, where consumers were alleging that they were underpaid from the insurance companies on their vehicles after they've been designated total loss. So it's a very live discussion, and I think this trend is continuing. And I think technologies like ours are there to create the middle point between automation and saving on one hand, but also allow transparency and fairness to the customer.
Wonderful. Okay, that's the added value, right? So, what are the biggest challenges that you're currently facing as an entrepreneur, a startup, or scaling your operations, and how do those challenges impact your overall business goals?
So I think definitely there is some skepticism around what technology can do today. I think I just heard the other day someone from deep within the industry, someone that's been assessing vehicle damage for a very long time, claiming that, well, you can never automate damage assessments because one damage is not like the other damage. You can
Mm-hmm.
take two cars exactly the same time, crashing into a wall. One will have it will be costing $12,000. The other one will be costing $50,000,
Mm-hmm.
$15,000, or even more. So there's no way a machine can figure this out. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing today is that you've got these voices within the industry that will say that. But to those, I'm kind of maybe borrowing another example, and this is Google Maps, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So when Google Maps came on, you were driving your car.
Mm-hmm.
Google Maps would tell you turn right, but then your logic says, hey, I'm driving this road every single day. This is wrong. I shouldn't turn right. I should go straight ahead because I know this road, there's traffic on the other side. I shouldn't turn right. The computer doesn't know what they're talking about. It's a unique situation where I am. But then you ignore it and you hit traffic and you're late to your meeting. Then the next day, you'll say to yourself, should I turn right? I don't know. I'm not sure. I had a pretty rough time the other day, but I still know this. I know this road for sure. And you again make the mistake of ignoring Google Maps. And finally, gradually, you start to trust the system. Why do
Mm-hmm.
you trust the system? Because eventually you figure out that the system has more data than you do. It's learning from other data sources, from other people in your area, and not just on your gut feel.
Mm-hmm.
And this is precisely what's happening now with vehicle repairs. There's enough data out on the market, and with the right sources and pulling them together, people should and will start to trust systems like Raven.
Mm-hmm. Great. So now you've discussed the consumer-facing aspect, which is interesting, adoption and resistance to change, obviously. So what is inwardly inside your organization? What are the challenges from a management perspective, admin perspective, optimization perspective? How do you apply AI to running your own business?
Oh, okay. Well, you asked two questions there. I think, internal challenges are much broader than AI application, but I'll answer both. I think from a management standpoint, it's always a mix of, you do still need to run a very human organization. So there's even here, there's a tension between achieving your targets, but also being human, caring about your people, understanding their motivation, and providing them kind of a longer term career prospect. It's very much today about what am I giving back to my employees? Because they're not just here to, work in the factory and go home. Many of them want to fulfill themselves and build up their skill set. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I help them achieve that? And by that also getting the most out of their talent. So I think that's kind of the challenge I'm constantly thinking about. And then I think, changed everything. In terms of applications, it's anything from the way we do our marketing, the way we are, uh, building our sales materials, of course, and presentations, but also even just writing code in the system. It is much quicker to run it today through one of the engines and get a developer to audit
Mhm.
than to write it from scratch.
Mhm.
So it's really everywhere.
To give it a little bit more context, and then we'll come back to the challenges, okay? Because you talk about taking care of your employees, giving meaning to them, giving them a fulfilling experience, which is very much the new generation's expectations in the market, right? So can you tell our audience how many people work with you today and maybe the top line of your business, even if you don't disclose everything, just give us a ballpark number?
Yeah, look, we're a couple of dozens today. We're not a massive company. We're not like hundreds, but it's a big enough organization that you need structure and you need clear processes. And I admit I'm not a great process person. So I try to break sometimes the process, either purposely or just coincidentally. I will do something wrong and I will kind of shake up the system. So this is kind of the size of the business, and I kind of enjoy it like that. And top line, we're in the multi-million dollars, obviously. So we're selling, we're out in the market. But again, not a massive enterprise still. So we're kind of nimble and move very quickly.
Wonderful. That gives a good context. Thank you. So now in business, really, we have two things, right? Going after market and the other one servicing our market, our clients. So where are on those two pillars, what would you say are your biggest challenges? Because I think it's a mapping that will speak to our audience.
I think definitely the penetration piece and adoption is the most difficult. And that is difficult for anyone that's selling into enterprise. So we're not dealing with small and medium companies where we're selling into large enterprise. And that means that we need to be very sophisticated, very long sales cycles. It's even harder when you're trying to sell a completely new product. And it's even harder when it has AI.
Mm.
That is like spooking everybody today, but also something they feel like they need to know more about. So it means you have a lot of conversations because everybody's curious about what you're doing. But from there to take it all the way to wide scale deployment, it's extremely hard.
So that's on the, you were saying penetrating the market. What about under servicing the clients? Once you have the client, once you've signed, once you have that glorious moment, of inking a contract. So tell us more. The
The
challenges,
challenges of doing that.
yeah, of servicing your clients.
Yeah, look, I mean, in servicing clients, it ultimately comes down to business value. And that's what I keep telling my team. You can sell based on a lot of kind of perceived value and vision, but end of the day, you need to provide value very much on a transactional level, on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis.
yeah.
So you need to really figure out the unit economics of that customer
Mm,
and see how you're improving it. In our space, for example, of course, it's the claim cycle time. And how quickly can you tell a customer that their vehicle is total loss, so
mhm,
you can pay out a fair amount versus what's happening today in many companies. Vehicle gets towed, waits somewhere, and then for a very long time, a customer doesn't know exactly if it's going to be repairable or total loss.
mhm,
And then waiting for the payout, figuring out what the payout should be. So this is where we need to deploy the features that we were requested to deploy. The
mhm,
system needs to work, it needs to be stable, it needs to be understandable. The user interface needs to be easy enough for you and me to use it. First time users, so we're always consumer facing. Like you have an accident, you see Raven.
mm,
You might see the colors and the brands of the insurance company, but really it's Raven that's taking your photos. So we need to be super easy for a wide spectrum of demographics,
mhm,
but also um, but then also being able to produce the value from that inspection and give the correct answer to the insurance company.
Mm-hmm. Do you use, okay, so in this particular instance, which is at the core of that conversation, the making of the value, right, to your users, can you remember a time when you were truly tested, due to unforeseen operational issues, or, what was the ultimate impact on your business?
So fortunately, we didn't have those moments where, things were really dramatic, but every time there are obviously glitches when somebody like, you had the Cloudflare incident a couple of days ago, if
Yeah.
you recall, and that was just, some configuration somewhere that just has a knock-on effect on all the clients. So these things do happen like updating the database or misconfiguring something, and then finally, and then you're dealing with a few hours of people can't access the system and what's going on. Again, this is where processes can really help. Just
Yeah.
understanding who's level one, who's level two, what is the right escalation path, no matter what the time is in the day. And we work global. We have clients in the US and then in Australia, so we need to really be on top of things all the time.
So those processes are important. And so what's the cost, if you don't address those logistical challenges constantly?
It's massive. It can't be underestimated. It's going to be overestimated. I mean, you can be eventually, if you fail your basic proposition, which is my system is going to be reliable and accessible and secure, if you miss those reliable, accessible, and secure on a continuous basis, you cannot do business with financial institutions or any kind of respected global company.
Hmm.
So you will end up just losing your customers.
Hmm. And then on the front side, you were saying the CRM piece, right? Constantly long conversations and making sure that you stay on top. And so what would be the cost of not having those, as you were saying, like constant reminders and constant systems in place?
Yeah, that's also a problem, and that one is actually a trickier one. So you're absolutely right, kind of pointing it out. Something that people miss, like they can say, "Well, look, I'm going to be just this is all so opportunistic, this business. I'll just speak to a few people. I don't need a CRM. I don't need a process. I just know I'm a rainmaker." And that again doesn't work at scale. You need to be running a very structured process. So recording all the conversations you're having with any company, understanding the stakeholder structure within your
Hmm.
target company. If you're selling into an insurance company X, which tends to be the top 10 player in the UK, for example, you need to know all the relevant decision makers, what's motivating them. Have they said anything in public about an area that's adjacent to what you do? And just map out those stakeholders and see how you tackle them.
Great. So now, last question. Thank you. That's super useful to our audience and to all of us. Is there a question that you'd like me to ask, any topic that we have not touched upon yet?
When will we see automated repair estimates on vehicles in our industry?
Is this a question for me? I
I
don't
think
have the
that's the
answer.
question I'd like to be asked.
So, okay, so go for it. Answer this question for us. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's here. And I think it's about industry education
Mm-hmm.
because there were some false expectations being created and therefore under delivery
Mm.
in the last couple of years. But I think both the technology came a long way, and I think we're also leading into a pretty ethical way of selling this technology and explaining what's behind the sausage making here.
Mm.
So I think within the next 5 years, you'll start seeing a lot more automated estimates and automated decisions being made,
Mm.
whether or not they will have some human kind of final audit, I think that's perfectly fine. But the bulk of the work will be done by machines, and that's my expectation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Eliran. This is the close of our podcast today. I think you've brought a lot of insights, into your own business, the role of AI in the value that you bring, and of course, the role of AI in the way you run your business, which is under, you know, um, speed daily activities and constant, marketing and relationship building. So I see all of this. Well, thank you very much, and all the very best, for the next phase of Ravin AI. Thank
Thank
you.
you.